Well, hello and welcome to Audionautic Deep Space Network, episode 48. This is our weekly music production, technology, and marketing podcast. Today we're talking about some new sounds in VCV Rack, a free stem splitter and DAW or DAW Lite in Serato Studio, and if internet permits, we'll be reflecting on Jamuary and whether there's merit to social media posting daily. As I mentioned with the internet permits, we've had some issues over on Curtis's end, unfortunately. So he's here, he made it, but we had a bit of some rushed change of plans right beforehand. So it's just the way it goes sometimes, but all should be all right. That's the beauty of live shows, I guess. We are live. Thanks to everyone in the chat who's joining us. And let us know what you've been working on this week. My name is Sunwarper, and with me today is Eon Lake. How are you?
Hello. I'm all right, thank you. Yep.
All giggles, huh?
He's all giggles. He's all happy today.
He said, I love technical difficulties. I thrive on it.
Awesome. And it's not me for once.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. You're moving up in the world.
Yeah. So what have I been up to? Not much, really. I put a new EP out that's on Bandcamp.
Yes. Yeah, that's not much. It's a great EP. What are you talking about?
Great EP.
Good 33 minutes of very droney, very spaced out stuff. That was very therapeutic to do, that was.
Nice, man. How long did you work on it for?
Well, the first two were really quick, but I did them nearly a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one was also very quick. And I did that one a couple of weeks ago. So there was this massive lull in between when I was working on other stuff and just not doing it. So, yeah, I just suddenly felt the mood. It must have been something to do with a reverb pedal that happened recently.
Were you using the night sky on it?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I
nice.
was using the infinite reverb on it and jamming various instruments through it, getting tones I liked, and then just playing for about 13 minutes.
That's the way to do a drone album, man.
Just happens. Yeah, I like getting one track with a bit of movement in it down and then just reacting to that multiple times, and it usually turns out quite nice.
And are you putting this one on streamers?
I will, yeah,
Nice.
when I can be bothered.
When you can be bothered.
What a great way of doing
That's a good way to look at it. I should also say, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I always go Bandcamp first anyway.
Yeah.
So you leave it about a month, but it might be longer than that depending on me getting my act sorted out. But apart from that, yeah, just messing around with live stuff, but nothing much to report there yet.
All right.
I mean, it's one of those albums that like you're rewarded quite wholeheartedly and like tenfold over. I think I was listening to it 2 nights ago. I was going to message you after, but I happened to have my leafy friend at the table with me, so I forgot promptly.
That leafy friend's always getting you into trouble.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, it's one of those albums that you sit with it and you can sit and meditate on it, and then by the end of it all, it just blossoms into this absolute amazing soundscape, and it's just it feels like, but you only get to that point because you listen to from the very first point. There's no point like going to like track 3 or anything like that. You start from the beginning and you sit with your feelings for the whole thing, and it's there. And at the end of it, you just have this immense feeling of calm. That's how I felt when I listened to it. So yeah, absolutely amazing.
Brilliant. Yeah, I like stuff that length that has that effect. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Puts my son to sleep really quickly as well.
Ah, nice.
Oh, there you go.
So that's the real reason you made 3 of them, huh? Over in the chat, Curtis put the link for this album. I highly recommend you check it out. And since we're on the topic of Curtis, also with us today, fortunately, because we were worried he wasn't going to make it, I got a WhatsApp that 5 minutes before we're supposed to be on our call, it's like, my internet's down. I was like, oh, crap. And a lot of today's episode is focused on some things that Curtis has been doing and stuff, especially the social media aspect. We're switching things up. I did the round robin. He does the social media today. It's kind of weird. It feels weird, but I think it'll be good. Weird. But it's also with us is Curtis. So what's up?
Hi. Mate, I haven't stopped. I think I did about 60 hours last week.
Wow.
New day job. which is, I'm a techie, and I did about 60 hours last week, which was mental, which hasn't left much time for the studio, which is fine. That's how these things go. In the meantime, finishing off Jamuary, which we're going to chat about later, and listening to, basically, I've been spending my time listening to other people. So I like Eon Lake's new EP, Bendu's EP. May have had a little conversation with what's upcoming in Shady Ridge Records. Might have had a little cheeky code for that. That was interesting. And yeah, so I've just been kind of, because I haven't had time to spend, I've been mostly answering emails and stuff. I've just been in the earphones, just listening through to stuff from the community, what everyone's putting out right now and where people are going. Bit of self-help, that kind of thing. Just having a bit of a passive kind of way. There's been a lot of that, basically, which has been very fun. It's appreciating other people's work, which is really, really nice. Like, obviously I listen to people's work when it comes out as much as I can and that, but I think especially over the end of last year, beginning of this year, there's been a backlog of stuff that I haven't got around to, because I've been listening to other things like podcasts and stuff. So it's nice to kind of go back through that. So yeah, feeling good on that front.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, it's always good to listen to other people's music and just see what else is out there and learn and all that.
Yeah,
it's fired up.
Say it again.
Sure. It's inspirational for me. Hearing what everyone else has been doing, it makes me pull my finger out and do more myself as well.
Very much so. There's always. I think, especially with Bendu's one, I think Bendu's was particularly warpy, in the best of ways, and particularly different. I think.
Yes.
And to kind of one of those albums where you kind of go like, that no one's doing that. No one's done that before. No one's kind of crossed that kind of sonic boundary before. And there's kind of an appreciation of that. It's like, that gives you a little like instigation as to what could be.
Yeah. Well, the closest you can get is just pick maybe an element here or there. And even then it's pretty vague. It's so characterful and so just of itself.
Very much so. Yeah.
I'm a little bit in awe of it in that respect, you know?
Yeah, and the artwork as well. Like, I'm always a stickler for a bit of artwork.
What a package.
Exactly. What about you, Sunwarper? What have you been up to?
What have I been up to? Well, I finally finished the masters for the first 2 tracks for the project that's starting at the end of this month. It's year long, so it just starts with those 2, but I was glad I got them finished. I was like trying to be rash and just get them up, and then I finally did the car test. I'd already put it to DistroKid, did the car test, and was like, oh, there's some really bad high frequencies I need to tame. So I had to go back, delete the one I uploaded, fix it, and then throw it back in.
Pull. Wow.
I tried to be like, I'm not, it's fine, just get it up, it's fine. And then the perfectionist in me got the better of me, I suppose. But I'm much happier with the way it came out once I redid it. And then the other thing that I've been up to, and it ties in with our first bit of news, but it's slightly different, is I've been doing a lot of sample flipping on my phone with Koala. Just like taking songs from Spotify and either just chopping them up or using Koala's stem splitting to separate the stems. I mean, the stem splitting, I don't know if you guys have ever messed with anything that does stem splitting. It's like crazy magic. I don't know what sorcery they do. This Koala one has some artifacting between the different stems it splits, but there's some that don't, and that's what we'll be talking about in the news. But yeah, the stem splitting is just crazy. Have you guys ever messed with it?
No, I'm assuming it's using spectral analysis and some kind of algorithm there, but I'd always assumed that what you get's going to be, I don't know, limited in some way, or just not good enough to really use. But apparently it's come along.
Well, I mean, kind of. Like, if you're going for that lo-fi, the Koala one I'm talking about, if you're going for that lo-fi sound, especially if you're running it, like I'm running it afterwards into the SP for processing, so it's like, it's okay, and then I'm adding multiple different samples over each other to create like melodies and things like that from different songs. The drums sound really good though. The synth stem that it makes usually, or chord, whatever it is, like usually has a little artifacting, but it works. It's pretty cool though. What about you, Curtis? Have you tried it?
Only through when we did Ripex Deep Create. When we did that, when we did that thing. That's the only time I've done it. I've done a little bit of that. What is it? Alia AI or something like that.
That La
AI.
Yeah,
That's the one.
I haven't checked that out. I've seen someone, I think Accurate Beats on YouTube was using that for something.
I've done that for acapellas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Also, well, it's a bit old school, but Adobe Audition, you can separate stems for you can separate the vocals from the instrumentals in Adobe Audition and then use that as a stem. But like stem splitting, like you've been using and posting on your Instagram, not to that degree.
Yeah. Okay. It's pretty crazy. I would recommend it. I mean, these aren't songs I would ever release. I'm gonna make some jams for YouTube with them, like Sample Flip Saturday or something, But it's just a really interesting way to work and learn the aspects of sound. But when we get to the news topic, I'll talk about another really cool use it has. Over in the chat, though, Hydro Fighter says he loves the car test. Yeah, I should have just done it first, but I was like, no, it's fine. Just get it done. Like, I had Eon Lake in my head always mocking me for going through like 8 masters and stuff. So I was like, I'm just going to do it. It's fine. And then I listened in the car and was like, damn it, Eon Lake. You got me. You got me. And also in the chat, we've got Bendu, Speak of the Devil. We were just talking about the new release, man. Great job. You work with a lot of samples, don't you, Ben? I'd be curious if you've tried any stem splitting. I know a lot of it's probably also just like vocal samples, but yeah, I'm curious. But yeah, I had Eon Lake in my head.
Just as Bendu is now here, we chatted just before you came in. Bendu, congrats on the new album. Absolutely fantastic. Loved it. Absolutely bloody loved it. It was lovely. So yeah, absolute new places. That's all I have to say. Eon Lake.
No. That's awesome.
it is very much in that regard.
You probably listened at the beginning of this broadcast, so I went into more detail.
Yeah, go back to the front. You have to see. Yeah. So, should we have a look at the news?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Our first piece for this week. I've already got it up. Serato. This is all from you, Sunwarper. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, Serato Studio. So I found out about it from those DiBiase's Diners, that weekly sample flip. He uses it. I think it was through Serato's Discord, and I never downloaded it then, but he would make a beat every week on Twitch using Serato Studio, and it has a stem split function. And it's kind of like a DAW, but it's a little... I said DAW light at the intro because it's a little not fully fledged. There are plugins and stuff, and you can use third-party, but when you open it, you'll see... But it's free, and the stem separation is free as well, and it's incredibly powerful. I was trying to take... that's the DAW. Like, that's what it looks like. So it's very sample-based. You can do MIDI and things like that, but it's very, like... sequence heavy and things like that, and it's built all about samples for the most part. So what I was saying about stem splitting, I made it. One of the tracks that I finished for the album that I'm putting out was all done on the SP, and I did some live performance on top of some sequence stuff on the SP, and I didn't want to recreate it because I was lazy. So I threw it in Serato. And I did the stem split, and it split everything with like no artifacting. The drums sounded incredible. Like there was no bass mixed in with the drums. The bass was just the bass line, and the synth had no low end. Like everything was separated properly. And so I was able to create like 3 stems out of it and separate. So the lead and the chords were together, which is fine. And then the bass was its own thing, and then the drums were its own thing. So it will also do vocals, but there were no vocals on it. But it was just crazy. So I was able to mix the stems properly in Logic from that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a completely different workflow. And like you say, it cuts out a little bit of time of trying to recreate shit. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you know how when you do something, you record it and it's like live and improv. Anytime you try to recreate it, it just doesn't have that same thing. Yeah. It just like loses that edge or that spontaneity. And so this was a great way to just get that, but still refine it a bit. So it was pretty cool. I wanted to try to show a video, but I couldn't get Streamlabs to link up with it. So I'll keep working on it because I'd like to show everybody like the stem separation. There is a bit of a video at the start of that webpage, Curtis, we can play. Making music on it's pretty simple and intuitive, though. I was surprised. Like, I just opened it and started doing stuff without any, like, I didn't have to YouTube it or anything like that. It's pretty simple to just navigate.
Do you want me to bring it back up? And
yeah, just show a little bit of the video. I want to do it justice, and I feel bad I couldn't get a video to show it, so...
Okay, bam. Okay, so this is it in its own right. It's just from the YouTube itself. Beat making. All right, hang on.
I mean, the recording feature is crazy. I mean, I love it. You know what I mean? It's like, if I'm making a beat and, you know, Rocky or somebody has an idea, I could turn that on and I could record him in and just get the idea down. And then at that point, I could take that and manipulate that audio and, you know, do something crazy with that. You know what I'm saying? But it's like, it just helps you constantly be creative. You know what I'm saying? Like, every button you're pressing, something cool could happen. You know what I'm saying? It's that type of tool.
It's so easy to use Serato Studio and make a quick beat. It's really like cheating the system, honestly, because it chops it up, automatically knows the BPM, the note, you pull up another instrument, it knows what key you should play, and it's just super easy.
Everything is in key, everything will sonically sound good, which is gonna save you and your listeners a headache.
I'm a sample-based producer.
What were you saying, Curtis?
That's the guy who really likes Nico's MIDI core pack.
Oh no. What's really cool though, it does the BPM, like they were saying, it senses the BPM, it tries to sense the scale or key. I mean, there's tons of stuff, and then chopping the audio up in there is really cool, and it's free. Like I said, I mean, this isn't promoted or anything like that, sponsored. I just thought it was really cool to do something different with a song that I was stuck on, like I couldn't change it. And then I do want to try to build some tracks on it, or use the SP connected with it, like how DiBiase does it, where he runs the audio back into the SP. So you can do like effects, but it goes back in. There's also a whole like audio overdubbing as you do each scene, like, you know, intro, verse, chorus. It's pretty crazy.
It's interesting. Like, it's a free download, and anything that kind of flips your workflow is never a bad thing.
Weren't we just talking about that in a round robin or something? Like, how have you flipped your workflow recently or something like that?
Yeah.
There's one. Yeah,
I found myself reacting during the video a little bit like it was a chord pack ad, thinking it automatically detects the BPM, and I thought, oh, forget. And then I thought, hang on a minute, would you buy a sampler now that didn't automatically detect the BPM of a sample? No, stop being a dick.
There's the Eon Lake we love. Over in the chat, Bendu says that, yeah, he does mostly spoken word stuff for sampling. He says, thanks for the kind words. Very glad to have it out finally. And he's played with some stem splitting in Isotope RX a bit. I forgot RX can do that.
I always think of RX as just being a repair tool. But
exactly. Yeah. That's how I always look at it. I forget it can do that. Yeah. Anybody in the chat other than Bendu, have you tried using stems splitting? I'd be curious to hear if you have, or if what we've been talking about has made you think about it. It's pretty crazy.
Free software, that was. Well, I mean, what's the deal with the paid version? I find myself wondering.
I
always thought Serato was DJing software. I never noticed they snuck this thing out as well.
Yeah, it's like very catered to beat making and things. But I mean, just in terms of what you can do with samples in it, I can see it just for any sort of electronic music for sampling and just like chopping and recreating your own stuff. I'm not sure actually what the paid one adds. I think there's more to it, and there's some stuff that I think is limited to only being in the paid one. If anybody's curious in Eon Lake, it sounds like you are, I can look and get back to you all in the next episode what the difference is.
I think it's always interesting. Like, again, we were talking a couple of weeks ago on Around Robin about different types of, like, we're talking about commission work and things like that, and like talking about making stuff for like TV or film, or making stuff for a commission, like, in terms of a package piece, making our own artwork. I think one of the underrated ways of kind of monetizing work, if that's what you're interested in, is beat making, because you can make beats relatively easily, and you can kind of not to diminish the responsibility of what they are, but beats can kind of follow a formula when you're kind of putting them out on places for rappers to do something over the top of. And so if you've got something dedicated to beat making, where you can, like I say, create a template and a structure and kind of like start almost churning them out, If that's dedicated to it, that's not a bad way to go there.
Yeah, Ian Lake, what about you?
I'm just sitting there listening to that, thinking of all these like hungry, thirsty rappers out there. Just like, if only I had a beat. Is there like a global shortage? These poor rappers walking the street going, shit, anyone got any beats?
I think in my experience, like I think with the rappers that I've worked with, or the rappers that I've kind of ran in circles with, a lot of a creative vibe.
Well, we lost you there for a second, Curtis. You mind restarting?
It's that bloody internet.
It's all right.
It's all right. I think it's something like putting in something a little bit special. I mean, I obviously beats you can like make a thing and a template out of them, but I think it's the combination of different sounds and like underrated things.
There's a lot of different ways you can go with it. Definitely. Yeah. I was thinking like in the band, the traditional bands, right? You've got, a few vocalists, you've got tons of guitarists, you've got less bass players, and you've got less drummers. So what's like the ratio of beat makers to rappers?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean, you got a fair point to it. Yeah,
that's a good question. Over in the chat, Hydrofighter says, I haven't played with stem splitting, but probably would if I wanted other people to remix my stuff. I don't think I would get it for what I do. One thing I find interesting, though, is the stem separation for drums, like to just get drum sounds and stuff. It's always like, I mean, there's legal issues and stuff, but if you're looking for just like random drum sounds to manipulate and stuff like that, I'm not saying you release it. I'm just saying if you want to just do drum things and stuff, that's what I've been doing with those stems on Koala, just like making new drum beats and stuff like that. Maureen's friend said, sorry for being late. I used the above before for a Hot Mulligan Charlie XCX remix I did a while back. Welcome, Maureen's friend. You're not late. You're just on time. Don't worry. When you say above, do you mean Serato Studio or Isotope? What Bendy was saying in the chat. Let us know. I'm curious. And if it was Serato Studio, what did you think about it?
We'd like to see. I mean, we're talking about remixing and revisiting old tracks a bit later in the round robin. It's been interesting.
If you're anything like me and your projects are an absolute mess and you don't archive properly, it might actually be easier to try and split your mix into stems than try and find the original material.
It's interesting. I was bouncing down all the stems to Marooned a couple of weeks ago, and my God. Like the whole when you like the idea of like going into a project which you've been working on for months and then you go back to it a few weeks later after you finished it, the time separation of everything making sense and like back in like you make a new stem and it's like I don't need to rename that because I know what that's all about. And you go back to it 3 weeks later, it's like shit, okay, all right.
What the hell is this? Is the work of a madman?
What is this monstrosity? Yeah, exactly.
I'm joking, of course, though. All my arrangements are very clear and labelled and highly professional.
You're speaking purely ironically.
Yeah, I think that's the musician's curse, is just poor labeling.
Well, you've got to keep going with the flow, haven't you?
Exactly. We've got a little bit of wub coming from my microphone.
It's louder now after that tweet.
Is it louder now?
Yeah.
How's that?
I think it's good.
Yeah, okay.
Chat, let us know if you agree.
Have you got a bit of dubstep coming from the microphone?
Speaking of, you could stem split this audio and get that wub for your next banger.
Yeah. There you go. Remix my voice and all the monstrosity that comes out of my face. And
there you go.
Next up in the news, we have... it's not particularly gear, but some very interesting news for those of us on this side of the Atlantic in Europe.
It's gear related.
It's gear related.
Yeah. It's very gear related.
It's more than gear adjacent. It is gear, I think.
Exactly. SUPERBOOTH 23 is coming back in May. Tickets are now open and for sale on that one. It's in Berlin. I don't know if it's always in Berlin, but
it was last time, I think.
I think it always is. Yeah.
Yeah, it always is. Yeah.
I always watch Sonic State do their little tour of it.
Well,
not so little, it's massive, but their tour of it, I should say.
Mm.
Yeah. It is in Berlin this year from 11th to the 13th of May. And there's over 200 exhibitors from over 34 countries presenting the latest in synthesizers and electronic music technology. Something I feel we might be slightly interested in.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So yeah, just a little public service announcement. We did look at the tickets. You can get a day ticket for €40, which is about $40 at the moment. And a 3-day ticket is €98. At the moment, I did look on pre-sale. They are on 79, but they will go up to 98, that kind of thing. We were talking about this on Monday as part of the Sunwarper and Curtis Audionautic weekly meet, where we were kind of like planning out the week and where we're going for this. And well, Sunwarper, tell us what we were talking about.
Yeah, well, thanks to our patrons who help support what we do here. And if you want to check it out, you can head to patreon.com/audionautic. We've been talking that Curtis is pretty close by, so he may try to head on over there.
Yeah, I'm in Prague, which is about, in terms of trains, I think it's about 4 or 5 hours away. And I could, in theory, hop up on a Friday afternoon after work and then stay there for the Saturday, because it's till the Saturday, and then have a look and see what we're all up to. If you guys listening back either live or in the stream, let us know if that's something you'd be interested in, because it's something I wouldn't mind doing. And it would be something quite an adventure, something a bit new.
And when we say going, I mean, he's got all the gear to record audio, so he can check things out, report back to us, and we can make a whole episode out of it where he'd show some clips and we'd talk about it and his experience there. And I think it would be really fun. And I mean, you know me, anything that's hardware and gear, I love. So at least I could live vicariously through you in those moments, you know?
And if we do a whole episode on it, that can cover up the fact that I won't be talking to him for a while if he does go.
Think about going it. It'd be quite quick. And obviously, it would just be me with a selfie, and all you'd see is my face and none of the actual electronic stuff.
I mean, if we saw the gear, I'd be disappointed. We want to see the reaction. It'll be a reaction video, obviously.
So let us know if that's something that you'd be down for. Let us know in the chat, or let us know, patrons, let us know. Because, it would be a part of your generosity that would be helping us get there. Extra behind the scene bits for our patrons, etc. Let us know. We'd really like to know.
Yeah, I'd be curious if anyone in the chat or Eon Lake has ever been to SUPERBOOTH or any of those big events like that.
Very much so.
I know that we've had people go to the US ones.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, I forget who it was now, but I think I just have to stay away from these things. I'd love to get a SUPERBOOTH, but
come with me.
Your studio is a SUPERBOOTH in its own right, though. I mean, we could tour your studio, and it would be like SUPERBOOTH 23.
I don't see how 2 days would be enough for me, really.
Yeah,
to get around everything I'd want to see while I was there. So. Yeah, it could be terrible for me. I think I should stay away. I think they should actually move it further away from me just to keep it out of reach.
I'll have a word and see if they can come directly to Prague. But we do it based on, because I think they release who's going to be there in the next couple of days or couple of weeks. And so, if you're a patron, let us know who you'd be interested in, and that would give me some form of idea of who to head for. Because me being the ADHD riddled kid I am, it would just be a case of
bleeps and bloops would get you.
Exactly, and I'd just be lost in the field of paralysis of analysis.
Yeah.
So if you are looking for anything in particular, drop us a message or let us know in the Discord, and we'll go from there. But that could be fun. I mean, Maureen's friend seems to be down. Live correspondent Curtis in the wild. Press passes, maybe in a few years when we've got some credibility. That'd be quite nice. But for now, we're just going to go and have a chat and do everything like that.
Frequency Control Center is also in the chat. He says, hey guys, hey Paul, how are you doing? What's up?
Hey FCC, welcome to the show. It's nice to see you. Did you let us know? Did you end up buying those speakers? Let us know. Which ones did you go for? Because I'd be curious to see.
For those that don't know what he's referring to, he's talking about a chat that happened over in our Discord, which if you want to come hang out with us and talk about synth shit, you can head to the link in the description to come join us. We talk a lot about gear, production. I just posted a video over there about breaking down the Amen break, that's in like drum and bass and all that stuff. I forgot who it was. It's on the Discord, but he recreated it on one of those little Roland drum machines and then put it in the deluge and like chopped it up. Really cool.
That's bad.
Very cool. And he says, Frequency Control Center says, no, still researching and mulling things over. Yeah. Well, let us know when you get one. Let us know over in the Discord. But yeah, there's a growing group of people over there talking about music and all that stuff. So if you want to come join, just head to the link in the description.
Very much so. We have, for our patrons who are listening back, we have our patron hangout on Sunday, which is at 7 p.m. UTC, which is 10 a.m. Pacific time or 8 p.m. Central European time for those of us on the continent. That is once a month we hang out with our patrons to sit and chat shit about synths, as Sunwarper said, very much so. And also on Mondays, again, 10:30-ish Pacific, me and Sunwarper are sitting out in the voice chat for everyone. We just sit and have a bit of fun together, again, nerd out. We're finding a lot of people, because we all have significant others of some description whose eyes just glaze over start talking about synthesis, and so it's nice to be around our own people. So
yeah, I feel like if I mentioned stem splitting to like my wife, she'd just be like, "What?"
Yeah, exactly. Like I got the launch control the other week, as you know, and I was explaining to my girlfriend how it worked, and she was just like, okay,
cool.
Right, you have fun.
But you're like, I MIDI CC this to that, and I can do all of this, and I can change what I'm live streaming. Oh, that's
if
great.
I need this here, that thing there moves. Look.
But we all know what that's like.
Speaking of the very depths of synthesis and nerding out on weirdy bleep bloop things, Surge XT. This is our last piece of news for this particular week. And in my absence of everything's, Eon Lake was running around looking at what's going on. The Surge XT, the very famous open source synthesizer, which is really, really nice if you haven't checked it out. It's now gone modular in a set of modules for VCV rack, completely and utterly free. There's no payment for this at all. But VCV rack, I think you have to pay to be a VST. Is that right?
I think you need the paid version for VSTs. Yeah.
Which is a small. You've got it, haven't you? It's a small investment to make.
If I really should use it, this program's so useful to me. It reminds me of all the stuff I haven't been doing. Yeah.
That's what we need to see. Well, there's 20 effects, and with the original presets from the Surge XT itself, 33 filter types, analog modeling, mixing, and utilities tool. Everything that is in Surge XT. Now, Surge XT, I don't know if you guys have ever used as the VST itself.
No, I haven't used it, but it's...
No, in your absence, we were all like, Ian, like, and I were just like, what is that?
The KVR Reader's Choice Award multi-winning modular bits instrument. So it's got a bunch of stuff all in one sort of, pretend chassis. So it's kind of obvious to sort of adapt it for modular, and it's open source, which means it's free, which is the price tag that we like to start shopping at.
That's true.
Yeah, very much so. It's Surge XT itself is, again, it's still open source, so it's completely free, and it runs on well, you can go into any DAW, but the wonderful thing about it is its malleability, and it's not a wavetable synth, but it's incredibly versatile. It's FM synthesis, and it kind of really allows you to kind of really dive deep and kind of create your own sounds with it. It's been a staple for, again, coming back to beat makers and those who like to make weird sounds. So it's interesting to see it go into modular, the modular world.
Yeah, that's cool.
Exactly. Yeah, very much so.
Do you have VCV rack, Curtis?
I do. Yeah. I have VCV rack. I haven't paid for the VST, but that's a conscious decision, just because the idea of it is that here I have my modular. Here I have my DAW, and then I import stuff. I suppose a bit more traditional, like I've been eating rice for the last 2 weeks, so like I could do with buying food first. But yeah, it's very good VCV. And if you want to get into modular and you don't have the ability to buy modules, it's a great way to do it. It's a great way to get into it and learning about how to get this sort of stuff done.
Yeah. It's a great way of getting over the initial limitations of only having sort of one of those and one of those and one of those. And maybe you actually needed 2 of those and 3 of those. If it's all virtual, you have as many of that module as you want. So you can build up little sections for voices and for complications and CV stuff, save them independently, bolt them together in new racks. It's more versatile than the physical world is.
Yeah,
that's for
that makes
sure.
sense.
I think when back in the day when we were doing light speeds and we had both Eon Lake and Letters from Mouse on talking about modular synthesis, I think the idea, I mean, one of the things that sticks with me is the idea that you always need another VCA. You can never have too many VCAs. And I think that very much rings true with something like VCV Rack, because you need another one. Oh, okay.
I got
V.
Or even worse, you've got the VCA, but you ran out of patch cables.
Oh.
How annoying is that? That's never going to happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great way to get into that.
Plus, you know, I mean, I don't know if you looked at those modules, but they're very tidy looking ones. They look good, and they've certainly been tried. Well, the sound in the XT has been tried and tested many times. So, yeah, it's pretty amazing that's in there. There are also things like Instruo modules and obviously the clones of the other open source stuff like Mutable Instruments. There's a lot in there to be playing with, really.
Mm-hmm.
This really does help their case a big deal, I think.
Yeah. So it's always good fun. Yeah. I mean, Sunwarper, you are somewhat hesitant towards the modular world yourself. Would that be fair to say?
Well, I don't have the money for the modular world at the moment, so yeah.
But it is VCV Rack or something along those lines. Would that be something you'd be interested in studying?
No, because then I'd want to get into modular. keep me far and away from that.
He knows a rabbit hole when he sees one.
Yeah, I don't need that. I'm already in the sampler rabbit hole. Like, keep me far away, far away from that.
Like me and SUPERBOOTH, really.
Yeah, I would love to get into modular at some point, but it's definitely not now. And I'd much rather get like an 8-string guitar or something like that in the moment than
That's
get
fair.
something like that.
It's fair. I just need to find some money, and I'd love to build a little Euro rack. But yeah, it's just the money. It's the barrier to entry with that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the nice thing about VCV, I suppose, though, that there really isn't much barrier. But like I was saying, is it's easy to then be like, okay, now I know what I want. I'm going to get it. And David in the chat says, stay away, Sunwarper. Hey, I'm trying. It keeps trying to grab me, but I'm like, no, I think I'm good for now.
Well, I mean, we have Bendu in the chat. Who does
Save yourself.
Save yourself, yeah. We have Bendu in the chat who has a little bit of modular. We've got Maureen's friend who uses a lot of modular. I think semi-modular, like the Moog stuff.
Yeah. I mean, my Erebus is semi-modular, but
Yeah. I'm currently fiddling with a Behringer crate, which is semi-modular.
Oh yeah.
Just we'd like to know what you guys get a kick out of it for. We know what Eon Lake does and why he does it and what he's all about. Deep State.
Well, it used to be that there were things that you could do there that you couldn't do elsewhere. So I think, for me, one of the fundamental things about modular is that with normal sequencing and MIDI, you've got your note on information and your pitch information are tied together. They're related, right? And one of the things that modular gives you is the ability to completely separate those two things and have a rhythm that goes that is going to be when your notes play, and a pitch thing that's going and changing that's going to be what pitch is played, but they can have nothing to do with each other at all. You know, you can separate those elements and do all sorts of weird things and self-modulate, so on. A lot of this stuff has found its way into digital audio workstations and synths and so on. So it's less of an argument than it was before, but it's just that ability to just rewire and do things differently and mess around.
I think it might have been Maureen's friend. I might be misquoting, the idea of making a patch, using it, but then once you unplug everything, that's it, and it's gone.
Distractive.
Yeah.
Completely distractive.
That's why you sample it, make a sample library out of it.
But yeah.
And David says the clocking is brilliant too. And Bendu says, I like VCV Rack. If it had been around when I started, it might have saved me a bunch of money. Yeah.
I think that's the way we're at with that one. I think
yeah,
we're all kind of like modular once. We all want it. I suppose it's just the financial side of things. But yeah, that is the news for this week. If there's anything that springs your interest, or let us know. Because we source this news week in, week out. But if there's anything in particular that you find interesting, or you feel like we should know about, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, definitely. And Bendu also says that's the power of modular. Just record it all and sample yourself. Yeah, and you could even stem split.
Very much so. So that brings us to the end of the news. So we should go into buzzing. We should go back into the marketing for this week.
Yeah. And this one is largely Curtis. So he has got the buzz, but no, I think it's solved again. Just before you tweak, just mute yourself because it's making some loud clicks. But you're good now. I think the buzz is gone. Okay. But no, when you unplug, it makes that pop noise.
Apologies for anyone's ears, by the way.
But so Curtis has done a month of daily posts on social media for Jamuary. So we thought it would be interesting to take a look at, what he learned from it, but also sort of the metrics and whether he thinks, because a lot of social media gurus will tell you post daily, that's the way to grow. Well, he did. So let's find out whether he thinks it's worth it or if that's not exactly true for musicians or, what were your experiences? Let's talk it that way.
All right, I was listening to my cat Tina was sneezing uncontrollably. Horrible. So I couldn't.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, January. Glad it's over. I think I mentioned that a little bit last week. I'm glad it's over. I had real good fun. I think discussing things with Hardware Jams and with Atlas Castle, for example, who was another big proponent of it. And it was nice to kind of go back and forth in the community with that. Mm-hmm. It was good fun. Posting daily, quite happy to not be doing that, I think. Quite happy to not be doing that anymore. For full disclosure, I recorded it in about 3 or 4 batches. So I did, I think, about the first 12, 13 days on one day of changing t-shirts and stuff. And then I did another batch up until about day 20. Then I did stuff day by day for a bit. Then there was a couple of extras where I was just like, I didn't have time and I just got my phone and while I was at work, just recorded something. That kind of didn't record necessarily in order. I just recorded as they kind of went through. So I think whereas, the idea of Jamuary, I think, is you have a jam a day and then you kind of create something for it. So there is that involved. And I did find at the beginning, a lot of posting was quite interesting, especially as coming on the context of the fact that my Instagram has mainly been quite dormant for the last year because I haven't been doing much because I haven't felt the need to. It was a great way to kind of kickstart that again. Like the reach increased as time went through and more people could see my content and that kind of come through. That kind of grew throughout half the month. And then by the second half of the month, that kind of diminished back down to basically nothing, which is the usual for my Instagram account, should we say. But nonetheless, my reach increased and more people followed me and more people kind of saw what I'm doing. And I have seen an increase in my stories. So what I have seen is I've seen more people now seeing my story. So when I take a picture of my cats, more people are interested in that and more people can see that, which is not directly related to the music, but I suppose it's that whole kind of branding stuff, I suppose. Yeah. I can't remember what I was going to say after that. Yeah.
Well, that's all right. I think that's a lot to take in there. It's interesting. So you were saying that you found that when it started, your analytics were much higher, and then as it went, it kind of went back to baseline.
Yeah, so it kind of went through where it really grew when I started again, but then the consistent posting, and we've seen this a bit with the Audionautic YouTube channel as well, that it seems like perhaps maybe if you post too much, your reach goes back down again.
Yeah.
So I think there's an equilibrium to be struck. So we don't know if it's the same for YouTube Shorts or for TikTok, which is something that we're going to test next month. I suppose, yeah, we're in February now. I mean, this month.
Maybe starting tomorrow.
Yeah. I have created a Audionautic TikTok account, and we are going to post the shorts once a day until the end of the month and see what happens. Just see what happens and see if it goes. If it creates the same issues or the same ideas of what's going on.
I do think TikTok is a bit different in terms of consumer consumption. Oh, there's a word or two. But I think TikTok does promote, because I've been messing around with TikTok as Sunwarper, and I don't post daily or anything. I only post the same amount that I post on other things, but I've noticed like different things, like putting text to speech at the start helps comparatively. And when I do post more frequently on TikTok, like if I use backlogged video or something, it does seem to get more reach, like it keeps going. But with Instagram, I seem to find that's different. But I'd be curious, to those listening in the chat, in terms of like watching a musician, not being a musician posting, but in terms of if you go on social media, what's your take on daily posts? Like, do you find it's too much when you see someone posting that frequently? I'm just curious. Me personally, like I do find that it's a little like, that's a lot, you know? And you had mentioned, and I don't want to steal your thunder, but you had mentioned one of the best things you found of it was that if you're trying to learn how to make video or something like that, it's very helpful to do that quantity. And they say that, I think that's the same with YouTube too, like post more frequent. I'm not saying daily, but to the best of your, while keeping quality up, to learn how to use Final Cut Pro or what's the one you use? Adobe Premiere, right? Premiere Pro. Yeah, something like that, to learn how it works, learn the way of the system, all that. And I get that for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that was really useful, especially I was coming from a context of a new setup with a new computer and a new camera, that kind of thing. The idea of going back to like recording the raw audio, syncing the audio with the video, and making it all nice, and doing that over and over and over, that was really useful.
Yeah.
The idea of getting into that, because we do that though with Audionautic week in, week out, we have been doing now for nearly a year, because we're on episode 48. That
year.
Yeah, that system that we've been there, I already kind of understood. So I suppose if you are new to the game, so to speak, and you're looking to get a foothold, it's really useful for that kind of thing. Very much a kickstart. In the name, it's January, first month of the year, kickstart yourself. If you are a bit more seasoned, and I'm not saying that I'm any more than anyone else, but if you've been doing this for a bit, maybe there's other ways in which you can focus your energies, which might be a bit more productive. In short,
yeah.
Maybe
you can separate out the positive elements. I mean, I think there's a good point there for learn by doing, if it's something you don't already know how to do. But institutionalizing a daily practice is probably a good thing. You don't necessarily have to put it, you'd have to stream it all, or you can save them up and use them over a longer time period. But having a regular, what's the word? A sort of a regime where you do it, you always turn up, you do your thing, you go about your business. It's probably a good thing to institutionalize. But yeah, I mean, you could cover more time with it, couldn't you?
You could. I think so, very much so. So I think there's pluses and cons. I think if you're looking to grow in terms of content and marketing, there's definitely a way to do that. But I think it's about finding that balance. Yeah, so I mean, Sunwarper's found some success with like once a week, and I'm gonna try posting big stuff, twice a month, and go from there and see what we're going on. We are going to, like I say, experiment with TikTok. I've just created an Audionautic TikTok.
Yeah, and YouTube Shorts to see daily posting on YouTube Shorts on the Audionautic YouTube.
Very much so. Yeah, very much so. So yeah, that's what I've got from there. If anyone else has done Jamuary and is interested, let us know what you've been doing. I've seen some people do it while I've been surfing the interwebs. It'd be nice to see if I've missed anything, because it is good fun to see what people are doing with their sounds.
Yeah, David says once a week feels better as a consumer. That's kind of where I'm at. 1 to 3 times a week is kind of like what I feel like is best for me. So yeah, it's just interesting to hear everybody's take. And if anybody has questions for Curtis about his experience or making the videos daily, I mean, he batched it, but he was still posting them and editing them and things like that, let us know in the chat, or if you're listening back, let us know in the comments. Yeah.
Very much so. Very much so. We are going to have to cut to the transition screen, I think.
Yeah, we gotta pause for a moment and come back. So just bear with us for one moment, and we'll be back.
We will be back. Problem with Google. 2 minutes.
And we're back. Yeah, so Bendu says, costume change, I wish. No, it's a Google issue. They apparently now are limiting chats to an hour or something. They're just trying to stop us, but they can't stop us. We're back, so don't worry about it.
The machine. Yeah, we'll look into it. This is well, we've toyed with that, having that with us before, but they've never actually followed through with it. So that's weird. I think maybe, I mean, this is the first time, because of my internet issues, it's the first time that I'm logging in.
I wonder if it's because maybe it's in a US thing, because I was Audionautic on this call. Now I'm Sunwarper again, but because you weren't going to be here, so I had to pick up the reins. So
maybe that's a thing. Maybe that's a thing.
Maybe it's a US thing or something, because I kept getting notifications when I'd go on calls that it was like only an hour, but when it kept working for us. So yeah.
It really shows that the three of us, like when one of us drops, the whole thing is affected, isn't it? Really?
It is nice to see, though, that we're back in the right order with you on the top left, or my top left. I guess it's probably, and then Eon. Yeah. Frequency Control Center said, can someone do a drum roll? Yeah, you're welcome to do it. Yeah, there we
And, you know, I mean, why haven't you got you should have your 404. Plugged in,
with those samples I've been getting with the drums, I have some drum rolls. I could go like.
There you go. Apologies for that, but this is a live show, and occasionally things like these happen. So
the beauty is, though, if you watch this after on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you won't see that, because I edit all of that out. Unless you guys want that. I mean, you know, it's up to you. But we'd love if you'd head over there and just give a rating if you'd like to help us appease the algorithm, shall we say.
Very much so. We've had people comment and like, we cut it all up and get rid of the ums and ahs, and some people like that more polished kind of broadcast. Sometimes there's different things as well, so it's always interesting to find out. So let us know if you do go check it out. Drop us a message, let us know what you think.
Yeah.
But yes,
so shall we go to the round robin?
Yeah. So, in a wonderful way, this is Sunwarper's round robin, because I couldn't think of a subject this week.
And luckily, it came to me about 5 minutes before we went live, and 2 minutes before Curtis was like, "My internet's gone." I just messaged him and was like, hey, what about this as an idea? And he's like, my internet's gone. So I was like, well, we're running with it because it's just Eon Lake and I guess. So, Curtis, before I talk about it, do you want to just briefly describe what the round robin is for those that are listening for the first time or on the clip?
Yeah. So the round robin is the section of the show where we have a question, be it about music production, be it existential or production or something along those lines, something to discuss. Essentially, it's the discussion round, I suppose.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's what this is. It's more of a. Sometimes we get a bit philosophical. Sometimes we get a bit existential. In the case of Eon Lake, sometimes we get a bit ranty, and that's absolutely fine.
Sometimes. I really wanted, when I was editing the last video, sorry to go on a tangent, but Eon Lake did the greatest eye roll I've ever seen when we were talking about something. And I really wanted to just zoom in and just show that, but I felt it'd be unfair to Eon Lake, and I didn't get a chance to ask him if I could do it. So, but if you do watch it, you can see him do a glorious eye roll. It's like near the end of the show, but it's on it's on YouTube as well.
Very much so. Could put it on a t-shirt if you wanted to. The ever-expanding theoretical t-shirts that we do. Yeah. So that is the round robin. Sunwarper, tell us all about this week's.
Yeah, so this came to me today, actually, because the band Thrice, who are one of my biggest influences in my formative years, and this album specifically was one of the things that got me into music making and really taking guitar seriously. It's called The Artist in the Ambulance, and I think it came out in 2003. So they just surprise dropped today a complete re-recording they did this year of the album. And this band Thrice, for anyone that's not familiar with them, have gone through, it's the same lineup the whole time, but they've gone through multiple stylings. Those early albums were post-hardcore. Then they went to this more kind of experimental sound, and then this bluesy, aggressive rock. I don't know how to describe their later works, but they're all really cool. But they've changed their tone a ton and all this stuff. So it was very interesting to see the band and who they are today revisit these very hard, aggressive, chuggy riffs with these bluesy vocal sounds and stuff. And they didn't, when they recreated it, they didn't recreate it in their current style. It's them redoing it. I guess they weren't always happy with the production or something like that. I don't know. But it's just this really cool combination of who they are today with what they were then and seeing how it comes. So I just wanted to bring to you guys and also to the chat the idea of revisiting old tracks, and not just revisiting to open the DAW and look at it, but actually recreating it with who you are today, your experiences, your knowledge, your music production knowledge, but just who you are at all, it's just an interesting idea. So I wanted to get your guys' take if you've ever done that, would ever do it, or if not, why. And chat, feel free to chime in as well. I'm very curious about it. How about Curtis? We start with you.
I'll start by just saying we started this show with a stem splitter because we didn't want to revisit old tracks or redo old tracks. This is interesting.
Well, okay, just the track in question at the start is the new track that's coming out in February. Yeah. It's not an old track. It was.
I know. I'm being facetious. But yeah. I'm all for it. I love it. I love doing it because when you, especially if there's a load of stems that you have forgotten about or you kind of lost your way with, coming back to it and kind of giving it new life, it can, with new knowledge, fresh ideas, that kind of thing. It's never a bad thing.
What do you think about starting from zero though? None of the stems, just recreating it. I know we're electronic music, so I know it's a little different. So I'll give some leeway, if you already have some stems. But, I don't just mean, a remix, I opened the stems. Like what I did for Glass Taurus, where I just tweaked everything to what I am now. That's cool, too, and we can talk about that. But I mean, actually restarting. Or just, maybe using one stem and rebuilding.
I mean, personally, I'd do it if I felt that if there was something I could add value to. So, say I was going to go back to, my old SoundCloud stuff, which I've never released on Spotify or officially.
I didn't even know you had old SoundClouds. Now I want to dig and find it.
If you want to see, the pre-Curtis stuff, it's all on SoundCloud. And that possibly I would, because I feel like those stories still need fleshing out, and I feel like I could still bring something new.
Yeah.
Feeler Math onwards, I feel like they're in time, and for me at least, my process is all my process. Look at me with the process. The idea is like the idea is like it's a moment in time, and it is what it is. It's not perfect, but it tells a story, and I'm putting my heart on my sleeve, and I'll tell another story in a different way down the line. But that's what that story meant to me then. So I'd be less inclined to do that purely because, of those reasons. The stuff, the depths of my SoundCloud, perhaps, because that's a whole different kettle of fish.
So for what I'm getting is, if it's something you're not very happy with, you'd want to revisit it. If it's stuff from a certain point where you feel good about, or it captures a moment specifically, you'd want to leave it, right?
In a way, yeah. Like take Needles, like my track Needles, which seems to be my most popular one on Feeler Math, right? I don't particularly. I think there are things that could be better with that, but I've had of all my tracks, I've had a lot of people come to me saying, "I love this track. This is a great track. It's a wonderful track. It's one of your best tracks." So I'm like, cool. That means something to them, and then so I feel like taking that away from them might be a little bit morose.
That's an interesting thought, because see, I don't view it as taking it away. I'm not saying you remove the song, right? Maybe I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Like, I'm not saying you delete it and say this is the definitive version. It's similar to kind of like what Maureen's friend is saying in the chat. He says, conceptually, I love the idea akin to jam bands having dozens of live versions from different eras. That's kind of how I'm thinking of it. It's like even Thrice billed it, I think, as The Artist in the Ambulance revisited, right? It's revisited. It's not definitive version. And I mean, I totally get what you're saying, and you're right. It captures a moment in time. That's like my whole point of Future Fade, was to capture a moment in time. I don't know if I'd ever return to something like that, because those were specific to that month, right? Like it was a thing. And so, but other things like Eidolon or even Radiant Visage, like 5 or 10 years down the line, it'd be interesting to do, just to like really see who you are now compared to then.
Yeah, I mean, one thing as a caveat to that, to just build upon that, one thing I did do, there is a version of Needles that there's a rap over the top when I collaborated with a couple of rappers in Vietnam. And that is interesting. And that is something I do, where if you take a beat or you take something that's instrumental and then you give it to a vocalist and put something over the top and then rework the track to fit that in, that's always intrigued me. That's something that I always enjoy doing.
Interesting, yeah. Okay.
But I think that's that, yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just going to read some chat, so
that's it. That's all I have to. That's my caveat. It's like if you're doing something new with it, and if you're bringing something fresh to the mix, then yes, in that way. I love working with rappers as well. So yeah.
Well, they need you. They need those beats, man. Apparently. Over in the chat, before we get to Eon Lake, Frequency Control Center says, I'd like to remix and remaster my first album because I had no idea what I was doing back then. Sometimes those were the best, though. Like, I listened to some of my early works, and I'm like, I don't even know how I did that, but it's cool. Like, but I also get feeling like you could really do something better with it. Like, the idea's there, but it's just not quite finessed right. Bendu says, I've done this, and one of my releases has the revisit, recreate. In hindsight, I stayed too close to the original demo. That's interesting. So you would want to change it more drastically. When you say too close, did you just do like a 1-to-1 recreation, or are you saying actually changing structure and things like that? I'd be very curious. And then Frequency Control Center says, maybe remixing old tracks like you would do a remix of someone else's track would be fun. Get some distance from it and treat it as something new. That's the Eon Lake special right there. Chop up a song. I mean, he does it with songs that don't even exist for real yet. And then Marine's friend said, or Taylor's version, Taylor Swift, I think he means, in the event any of us lose all the rights to our music, I'd re-record. Yeah. So let's go to Eon Lake. Long awaited. What's your take on it? If it's a rant, I'll be surprised. But by all means,
don't do it. Never go back.
Okay.
Very staunch.
Yeah, that's a very staunch.
No more said, what's it, that line? Return to my own vomit, just like a dog. You know, it's no. Unless you're Taylor Swift, in which case, yeah, you probably should.
Marketing.
Not those people. No, I'm joking, of course. I like the idea of it. I don't know. I shy away from it personally because it feeds too much. That doesn't mean I won't do it, but I kind of resist a bit because I think it feeds into that sort of like oh, it's like is the guy who did Star Wars George Lucas?
George Lucas.
Are you actually asking? I thought you were making a joke.
Well, he can't leave the bloody films alone. He's forever re-editing them and putting bits in. And just
well, he can't do that anymore. He doesn't own it. That's Disney now.
Yeah, he's been successfully stopped now. But you know what I mean? It's that whole sort of the perfectionist thing where that could have been better, that could have been better, that could have been better. It's like, yes, but if there's one thing that working with live bands taught me, it's that it's about having a vibe, right? You can forgive mistakes and imperfections if the vibe is there. Mm-hmm. That's what the music is about. It's about feeling. It's about capturing something. It's about translating it so that somebody else can hear it. And if that's there, then don't you dare touch anything else. Do you know what I mean? Or I suppose, I challenge you to go back and try and make it better without losing that, and see if you can, because I find you just end up overworking things. And for me, the first go is a bit like that, really. If you don't get there within a certain time frame, you're just going to work that track to death and just kill its vibe, and it just doesn't happen, So I don't know. I've heard some bands that have really re-recorded stuff because they didn't like the original studio version, and now they're better and they got better gear, and they thought, all right, well, let's redo it. And then I've heard the second version. It's like, all right, the first one had flaws. The second one it's got flaws. Congratulations. Now you have two impact perfect versions of your album. I mean, it was a thrash metal band is one of the ones that I was thinking of, and the new version had really boxy sounding guitars on. I mean, the drums were better, maybe the vocal takes were better, but the guitars sounded awful. They were really tinny on the original album. They're really boxy on the redone album.
So they traded one imperfection for the other, yeah.
Exactly. You're just trading stuff off. I like the idea of reworking tracks and doing something different with it. And I'm working on my live stuff at the moment, and I consider it like, it's open season. Like, I'm going to build the songs and the structure I want, but if I want to throw other stuff in and change out drums and stuff, that's fine. If something happens while I'm doing it, it will change as long as it sounds good in the end. That's the main thing, really. But yeah, I try to focus about moving forward and doing something different next time, and and learn from mistakes and not try and go back to correct. But if you have something that you think you could do something completely different with, then I think it's an artistic thing to go and do. If I'm honest.
Yeah, I just found it very interesting, just in terms of like 20 years later, seeing how different you are, but how can you kind of like create the same thing, but with the sort of a different flavor, like how Maureen's friend was saying, different eras of a jam band, they're different versions of it. It's just an interesting idea. I'm not talking about like a song you did yesterday or a song, that you never released. Like, I mean something from 5, 10, 15 years ago, and just kind of like visiting an old friend, but doing something completely I don't know, just like seeing how different you guys are or something, like, I don't know if I can describe it properly, but it's just an interesting idea, and I was just curious to see what you guys think. And over in the chat, Hydro Fighter says, this subject has a connection to big artists selling their catalog. Don't sell it if you intend on reworking it, like Maureen's friend said about Taylor. Hydro Fighter also says, I like going back to B-sides and reworking them into something new, but I don't have much intent on ever reworking a previously released track. Would rather just move on with new songs. And then Frequency Control Center says, I do tend to move on quite quickly to new stuff, even tracks a few months old. I don't really want to go back to that often. Yeah. And Bendu just added, incorporating old tracks into a live set is a version of this as well. Yeah. I think so. Yeah. I think definitely that's a good way to put it, because you're putting your current self spin on it. So it's the same thing. If you're playing a live song and you have different synth sounds or different guitar tones or something, it's kind of that same thing. So yeah.
I've been listening to a minimalist modular artist called Caterina Barbieri, and she has this thing about patterns and the way that patterns interleave and the effects it has on consciousness, the way that they can drift and so on. And she says that, that her recordings are just, that's just the take that happened at that time. And every time she interprets these songs, which are relationships between patterns and a certain amount of randomness and so on, they're going to be different every single time anyway. And that, you know, in a way, it kind of makes it meaningless to go back and do something, because if you've got something that's never the same twice anyway, you know,
yeah,
you do a million versions of it, but at the same time, not constraining it in that way. I like the idea of giving something a different interpretation, though. If you've got a different way you can go with it, it's almost like a challenge. You could start with a set amount of material and see how many and how wildly different things you can get out of it. I'd kind of like to do something like that one time.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be very cool. Well, anything else to add, Curtis?
No, I think we've explored it. I think everyone in the chat seems to be on a similar wavelength than that, and I think it's one of those where you have an opinion once you've tried it, I suppose, and then you can kind of sit where you go with it. Any experimentation is good, and you can either, you know, it's like anything. I won't go into specifics, but it's like trying anything. Sometimes you like things, and sometimes you don't like things. And
I wonder what you could be talking about.
And yeah, so like it's good. Go give it a try if you like it. It's good for you. If not, I suppose ultimately it comes down to what are you trying to get out of it. Are you looking to grow? Are you looking to try something new? Are you looking to learn from what you've done before, or revisit an old fashioned? Like every time I finish an album, I go back to the same spot. I go back to the root. I go back to my like John phase, and it's just me and a guitar, and that's it. And then I start incorporating. If it's something to do with that, sure, why not? But I mean, that's just my stupid opinion, really.
No, I think it's a good opinion.
Oh, I do too.
Well, there we go. Yeah, I think that brings us to the end of the show for today. I can't believe everything's kind of come together. It's been
don't jinx it. We got like 2 minutes left. Come on.
So yeah, it's hit the nail on the head. Thank you ever so much for sticking with us, even when we went dark for a couple of minutes. Really appreciate the chat. Really appreciate you guys listening in. And it's so much fun to see what you guys think and where you come from this. Because, like I say, we're three guys at three different parts of the world, and then you guys make it even better than it already is. So it's great.
Yeah, and if you want to continue the talk, head to our Discord. We'd love to have you over there and see what's up. Talk synth shit. I love talking synth shit, so never get enough of that. But yeah, we appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Eon Lake, any words? Last words? Final words?
Bless the patrons, every one of them.
True, yeah.
Us. Thanks for keeping us company during this slightly bumpy ride this week.
Yeah, well, I think we made it work. Chat, you can tell us if you think differently, but I think we made it work. But yeah, we really do appreciate our patrons. They mean the world to us, and we will see you guys on Sunday, and then everybody else will be back on Wednesday. We'd love to see you.
Very much so. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
Have a good week.